everyone, my name is Nadia Halim and I'm the Marketing Manager here at the Joyce. I am very excited to have the Gibney folks with me today for our digital curtain chat. So I'm joined by CEO and Artistic Director Gina Gibney and co-directors Amy Miller and Nigel Campbell. So first of all, I have to extend an immense congratulations to the three of you for what has been a spectacular and continues to be a spectacular run. So I'm going to start with that.
Thank you.
And Gina, I'm wondering if you could give us a brief history of the Gibney Company, which in its all multifaceted parts is celebrating its 30th anniversary.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think the thing that's really important to know about our organization, which has grown just beyond what we ever imagined, is that we started as a dance company. We started as an artist-driven, female-led dance company with humble beginnings. And we had a single studio at 890 Broadway, which was our artistic home that we shared with our community, which was phenomenal. And we also had a tremendous interest in using the power of our art to reach beyond the walls of the studio into the community. And those three pillars, those three kind of fields of action, even though we didn't call them very clearly company-centered community, were in play from the very, very first days of our organization. And I think that we are who we are today because we were founded as a dance company. But through the 3 decades of growth, all 3 aspects of the organization grew and were in dialogue with each other. But it was really in around 2010 that some of the kind of real estate risks that we took, taking on more space, taking on capacity to do more programming, becoming more of a central hub for the dance community, really meant that we grew at a pace that we just never anticipated. Literally tenfold growth in a matter of a couple of years. And the kind of stature of the organization, the visibility of the organization, grew to a point that we just were ready to do something different and something really unique with the company. And it was when Andrew Davis asked us repeatedly what we would want to do with the support, which was phenomenal. We so rarely are asked that question. Mm-hmm. What do you really want to do? That we identified the idea of going back to our roots as basically a dance company, with a nod to the fact that we had grown as we had because of that founding, and basically create a whole new model of a repertory company for New York City. Mm-hmm. That's a very short version of a very long period of time.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like, the statement-making space for dance is ubiquitous amongst the dance community. You see it on tote bags, you see it everywhere. So I guess I'm wondering, how does that phrase that you carried with you for 30 years, how does that resonate with you now?
I think that it's important to look at all the aspects of that. We are making space for dance literally in terms of the fact that we now operate 23 studios over 2 locations. We have theater spaces. We are making physical space and programming for dance. But we're also sort of making space for the possibility of dance, the power of dance to reach people in unexpected spaces, in shelters, in schools, parks, and making space for the community to grow and imagine and expand. So we like to think of that spaciously. We try to take an expansive view of our role in the community.
Thanks. Yeah. And Nigel and Amy, bringing you two into the conversation. So the company upholds a uniquely unilateral structure in its leadership. So I'm wondering how your roles play out within the company's dedication to servicing the dance community in such a holistic way.
Well, I joined the organization 7 years ago, and it immediately blew my mind. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I really just did not know at all. I had just moved back to New York from Sweden, and I saw an audition flyer, or rather several people sent me an audition flyer for a Gibney company. And it said that they were looking for experienced dancers who were interested in social justice and that they were actively seeking diversity. And it felt like it was calling to me. And I showed up. and I did an audition with Amy and Gina, and Gina offered me the job on the spot, which was exciting. And I've grown into, in my third season, Gina invited me to this leadership team, already with the notion that she wanted to build the company to this beautiful debut that we have right now. And so my work has been largely focused on helping the realization of that dream of the expansion of the company, finding artists, working together to curate and see which creators we want to bring in. What is the look and the feel of the company? What is the brand? And really being a part of this community that's already been created and helping it to get more visibility and being kind of liaison as well, I think, to the community of artists that we've compiled together.
And I guess for me, I always start by saying I've known Gina for over 20 years, and I've been here with the organization for 10. So there's a long relationship there, and I think that's why I continue to show up, is because this company is founded on relationships, and it's founded on building things over time. And I think it's also founded on and lives this idea of iteration, of version after version after version. Much like when we're making a dance in the studio, it doesn't pop out of our heads instantly. Mm-hmm. There's a process, and we change it every day, and it keeps responding to the moment. And so when I started to collaborate with Gina 10 years ago and learned about the community action initiatives of working alongside survivors in shelters and thinking about violence prevention and thinking about dance and movement in more expansive ways, like how do we move ideas, how do we move our lives, that aspect is woven through the artistry as well. Like the choreographers that we're welcoming in, we want them to feel safe enough to take risks and to make their best work, and do it in healthy ways. And so I think that's part of why I'm here too, is that we have outward-facing initiatives that have social justice embedded within them, and we're also, as best we can, trying each day to move in the direction of social justice and how we relate to each other.
Right, yeah, and that's, a unique part of not only your roles, but also the roles of the artistic associates that are part of the company. You talked about longevity, and I think that's a kind of a unique focus of the company, to make sure that these social justice initiatives are present as they're performing, and it moves forward with them as they move and grow as artists. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit more about how that program came to be and how each of the artists develops and establishes their individual programs.
Well, I think it really started again with a brainchild from Gina, as most of these initiatives do. I think Gina thinks really big, and I've even been hearing folks after the show recently, just the other night, they were like, Gina has always thought big. You think bigger than there are currently like the platforms for, and then the platforms emerge or folks see. Anyway, I wanted to get that in there. I've been meaning to tell you that on the side, so I'll do it here. I remember it was 2005, this idea of continuing to incubate movement through the company.
2005?
15.
I was like, wow, she really incubated it for a long time. I was like, this was new information.
We've got each other's backs. Let's go in. This is shared leadership in action, right? We got you, Amy. 2015.
2015. Moving toward a full-time company model, a 52-week contracts, paid health insurance, vacations, ways of having a sustainable livelihood and space for dance artists in New York City, to really dive deep. And with that came an idea around incubating leadership and incubating new projects, and activating around gaps in the field. Like, what do each of us see as needed within the field that maybe we could have a personal perspective on, or lived experience, or something that activates and makes us show up for that issue, for that idea, and then leveraging the institutional support of a staff full of amazing experts in marketing and fundraising and thinking through, and our community action team to support these largely dancers who've been on stage for most of their lives, but want to give back and want to develop other muscles that are in parallel with creativity and entrepreneurial thinking, and have that process develop over time.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough to join at the offset of that new iteration of the full-time company with the fellowships. And so what I felt coming in as an artist and a dancer who spent my entire life on stage was a bit of a disenfranchisement with the dance community and field that I loved so much, but beginning to feel a bit just like a receiver of information and a vessel for others to pump things into. But I felt that I had something to say. I felt that I had something to offer the community, but I didn't necessarily have the platform or the information on how to do that. And the model that Gina created, which excited me about the company, is not just a platform for great dancers to dance on stage, but an incubator for future leaders of the field. A space where we can become generators and creators and change agents. It's something that we like to call entrepreneurial artistry. And what does it mean, and how does it fold back around itself and inform the way you take the stage when you enter the space as a leader and empowered as a leader? On a more logistical side as well, as Amy mentioned, having the support and the resources of a 30-year institution that has an administrative infrastructure can't be taken lightly. And I think something that Gina noticed, and again, that she worked to fill the void, is that dancers have a lot of great ideas. But oftentimes where we fail is that we don't have the information or the support to, give them the jumpstart that they need. So my fellowship, which is called Move NYC, is actually now its own nonprofit. And so now I am directing a nonprofit and directing this company, and dancing and rehearsals, it's all of the things. But the kind of meteoric success of Move NYC is because we had the support of Gibney, because we were able to be cocooned and nurtured by this organization and sheltered from pitfalls that we could have and would have made and did make, but were cocooned. So we were able to see a kind of exponential success. And I'm really proud that, it didn't stop there with me, but we have initiatives like, okay, let's unpack this from Neil Zelenska, which were instrumental over the pandemic in providing mental health resources for dancers during such a difficult time. And now one of the growing fellowships, Our Paths, by Jesse Obremski, which really explores the why to everything that we do. Not the what, not the how, not the where, but really digging deep into why we do each of those things. So you really see now a broad spectrum of where these fellowships can go, from new dancers who are just in the idea phases to a full-blown nonprofit.
Can I add something?
Of course.
I don't know how we broke through as an organization. The field is so difficult and so challenged. And for so many years, we felt the weight of limitation and just, as if you're just running in the wind with all your might, but you're not getting anywhere. You have these great muscles, and you know that if the wind would just shift, that you could soar. It's such a challenging field. And it's been astounding to me. So many of the things that Nigel and Amy are speaking about that have become programs with momentum. 12 artistic associates, now actually 13, each one of whom has this program that they're nurturing. It's supported now. These ideas have been around for a really long time in the organization. They just had very little support. And one of the most incredible things about the Andrew Davis support was that we were able to sit down together. And for the first time, we've been a smaller repertory company for several years. And Nigel and Amy had breathed a lot of risk and life into that model with just 5 or 6 dancers. And that was a big deal. 6 full-time dancers with help bands was a big commitment. But sitting at that table and knowing that we could dream and that we had the practical support, the infrastructure of the organization in place. But we now had that money and that sense of prioritization of the company, and that burden and that limitation was suddenly lifted. And I think I just have to say on behalf of the field that our capacity to leverage financial support in the dance field is tremendous. And we have just felt that all of these things that we are able to do are possible because of our growing financial support. But these are ideas that have been brewing, and the potential has been there, and the potential is there in our field.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all of these initiatives I find are they're trickling down, from Gibney as this, expansive leader in the field, and it's finding its way to the dancers, to people who, just want to move, people who are coming to movement for a specific reason with their own backgrounds, and now it's trickling down to audiences as well. So I want to bring us to what's happening now here at the Joyce this week, and you're sharing all of this through all of its different ways with our Joyce audiences in New York City, the dancers who come in. So I'm wondering, we've talked about social justice, incubating, training, and now curating. What is it about the three choreographers who are featured this week, Rita Butler, Alan Lucianoyan, and Sonia Taye, that drew you to their work and how their work could speak to Gibney's mission and what it wants to present to an audience perspective?
We really want to do a lot of things. We want to be a dance company for New York City. We want to be a contemporary dance company for New York City. And through that, we want to accomplish a number of objectives. One of them is to present artists, to introduce artists to New York City audiences that maybe they're familiar with but haven't seen live or can only see if they travel. We want to bring those artists to New York City, and we want to be part of an introduction and making that work and those voices accessible. We also are really committed to risk-taking and to investing in the voices of tomorrow as they emerge, and to give them the kind of opportunities that will help them develop. It's so necessary and sometimes so lacking in our field to be able to be given a really high-level, extraordinary opportunity when you're early in your career. And then third is to have some surprises, to not necessarily curate artists who are seen on a lot of other repertory companies, or certainly not to do a lot of restaging of work, but to create some surprises and to do things that people might not normally associate with the history of the organization. And so in my mind, that is Sonia Taye, kind of a surprising choice for Gibney right out of the gate. The introduction of new voices is Alan, and the emerging voice is Rena. But I think Amy and Nigel can get into a little more of the detail of that.
Yeah, I love that Gina said risk-taking. I think that's a big factor for us. I think that that's something that Gina's always done, and that's a part of the ethos of Gibney. But in this debut, really, of the new expanded company, it was a huge risk to commission 3 world premieres, because we had no idea if any of them would be good. To be frank, they could have all turned out horrible. But
just not ready.
Just right. So the easier route to go would have been to commission well-known work by people who are very prominent in this sector of the contemporary dance world in New York City, also to bring in ticket sales. But we chose to go in the direction of finding artists whose work we admire, and if you build it, they will come kind of mentality. Alan is a superstar in Europe and really has, I think, taken a step forward in what dance theater could be, in the way that he mixes text and movement. And although he's so prominent in Europe, he's never had a premiere in New York City, and he's not very well known in the States. And so while the name didn't have immediate draw for some audiences in New York, we knew that the work would be impactful. And if we have this platform, shouldn't we use it to introduce audiences to new and exciting work that maybe they haven't seen before? And how does that differentiate us as well as a company that we're doing something a bit different?
Beautiful. And I guess I'll just speak about choreographers in general, or curation in general, whether it be choreographers that we want to invite in, or artistic associates, or administrative staff, or production staff. Like, I think the humans that we want to be around and make space for, and also a space where we can welcome expanded capacity for all these things, is the idea, I think, of there's a structure, there's a vision, and then it's flexibility at the same time, right? That there's a lot of skill sets that are needed to be working at this level, both interpersonally as well as career-wise. And then I think just a real generosity of spirit and a real commitment to compassion. And that if we are building version after version after version, there's going to be failure, and there's going to be like, wow, that didn't work, and ooh, let's try something else, right? Like that being normalized as totally part of the process and welcomed, because it teaches us what needs to happen next. So humans who get that and see that as vital, or are open to embracing that more and more, I think are the folks we want to curate and bring toward us.
Right. Yeah.
I saw a meme on Instagram that just jumped back into my head.
We're
And
gonna place it right here.
right. It said something like, stop worrying about what could go wrong and start thinking about what could go right.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, that really sums it up. Like, oh, what if the piece isn't good? Oh, what if nobody buys a ticket? Oh, what, again, that goes back to this kind of scarcity mindset that we're operating under. And instead thinking, how amazing could this be? How right could this go? One thing that Gina said in my first year when we first launched the fellowship initiatives was, she said, there's no question that this is going to be successful. The only question is, how successful is it going to be? And I was like, I like that. I really like that, but I'm going to go for it. So that, operating with that mindset lifts a weight off of your shoulders and allows you to dream, and allows you to take risks, and allows you to create. We want to be a place where we can create the masterpieces of tomorrow.
I just want to say too, it's not necessarily us. It's our art form. And I think one of the really magical things about our organization is that we have been able to bring together a lot of people who really love the art form. And we've created a culture, and that culture has generated this curation. This culture has created the conditions in the studio for the choreographers to make the best work they can. Because yes, you need resources, and yes, you need time and space and financial support, but you also need a culture in the studio that is going to be conducive to safety, risk-taking, and the conditions to make the very best work possible. And I think we all really believe that if we are doing our own work at work, if I'm doing my job exactly what I am put on this earth to do, if Amy and Nigel are doing what's in their heart, not compromising and say, well, I work for Gibney, so I'm going to go to work now, and I'm going to, but can actually bring themselves and their aspirations and their hearts to work, and then that fuels this sort of sense of possibility that, that is really what fuels the organization.
Yeah, and that risk taking and that sense of possibility coming from a trust in the mission, and then trust in the people that you surround yourself with. Yeah, and I want to end with just that. We're on the cliff of possibility. We're looking to 2022 and forwards. What excites you the most about how the dance world and how Gibney is emerging once again?
Go last. Because I don't know how to answer that. Think about it.
Yeah, I mean, we keep coming back to this idea of possibility. And actually, when I moved back to the States, I was not familiar with Gibney Company at the time, because I had left as soon as I graduated from school and went to Europe, and so I was completely out of the loop about what was happening in dance in the States and in New York. And I got this audition flyer, and I called my friend Lonnie Landon, who collaborates very deeply with Gibney, and I asked her about the organization. And she said to me, anything is possible at Gibney. And I thought, that's enough for me. And so I think with this debut, this finally being able to share what we've been working on and share this group of artists that we've compiled, really thinking of this as a beginning, what excites me is that where can we go from here if this is the start? How many people can we touch? How many platforms can we create? How many voices can we introduce? How many artists can we empower to be their best selves? How does all of that translate into the experience of an audience member viewing the work? I don't see any limits. It's a bit scary. That's scary. But I think we have a team that is here to support each other through the fear of that, because on the other side of that is just more possibility. It sounds like very dramatic to say, but I want us to be a part of changing the field for the better. I think that this has been a dramatic 2 years with COVID, but a lot of the way that the field was operating wasn't serving a lot of people. And Gina created this model. While this is a new introduction, Gina created this model of a company 7 years ago. And so we actually had 5 years to troubleshoot that model on a very small scale.
And with no money.
And with no money. So that now, when the Andrew support came, we're able to exponentially grow that model, having already built that infrastructure over 5 years. So I guess I'm saying that to say, what is the dance company of tomorrow? What is a more equitable and sustainable model for a dance company that also empowers dancers to be leaders and visionaries? And how can we not be a rarity, but shine a light on possibility for all of us to rethink the way that we are moving and